Hello, everybody! If it's Wednesday, it's Warhammer, and that must mean it's time for another episode of Warhammer Weekly. Joining me, as always, is my co-host Tom. What's up, buddy?
Hello, friends.
He's like a lower costed frigate every day. He's the same great frigate at economical prices. That's what
And
Tom's delivering.
and always overburdened.
Absolutely, always overburdened. That is true. You got a lot of little ones hitching on there, Tom. Also joining us this week, we're so glad to have him back on the show. It's Eric, Mr. Stone Monk. How you doing, buddy?
Doing great. Hello, everybody. Glad to be here.
Yeah, your hair is looking delightfully short.
I had a crisis of hair. It just was getting too long, and I couldn't brave it out at
Sure.
a hairstylist. So I just took a shave or two. I haven't done that since I was like 21 years old. So
Well,
half my life ago.
aren't you lucky? I've cut my own hair about 3 times since this all started. It's pretty easy.
Yeah,
Nice.
but you don't do like anything. You just sit in your house, and even if you mess it up, no one would ever see it.
I've got it covered by these stylish headphones. That's what it is. You can't tell. Where does
Exactly.
my hair stop? You don't know. It's a mystery. Does it stop right here? Who knows? Who knows? At any rate, we're going to talk about the narrative section of the GHB tonight, and a couple other GHB related things. I just want to make a couple other small points about it, but of course, we'll start with the news. Tom, what do you got?
There's a rumor engine.
There is. It's not up on the screen, as everybody knows. By the way, thank you to Goobertown saying I look sharp. I appreciate that. Another person whose hair I am very jealous of. So that's all right. But that's most everybody in the world, though, to be fair. But there you go. I don't have the rumor engine up because it is a ornate 40k pew pew gun that clearly looks like it belongs on a rogue trader or something similar. Somebody like a rogue trader or a very ornate inquisitorial type gun. Cool. I love the Rogue Trader figs that have come out. I hope
Right.
there are many more cool Rogue Trader figs that come out. That Cowboy Bebop Rogue Trader trailer, and yes, it was Cowboy Bebop. Don't try to pretend like it wasn't. It absolutely was awesome. And I loved it. And it was like my favorite thing ever. So cool beans. But it has nothing to do with AOS. So there we go.
It's true. But we did have some other stuff drop this week.
We did.
I see some images of some armies that got up points updates.
You did. You do. Yes. So the FAQ dropped, the thing we've been waiting on, all the points changes and rules changes. I'm gonna put rules changes in big quotation fingers there, because there wasn't really much in the way of that.
Well, like really? Are you saying like of like FAQ errata stuff? Because
Yeah.
I mean,
Hardcore
what did
errata.
drop? Like what did drop was pretty significant, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, you mean like in the size of the craterous impact that hit Petrifex Elite? Is that what the extinction level event?
Or even the Gaunt summoner adjustment on
Yeah,
how many horrors they get.
Those were both good things. My point is, there should have been a lot more. That was. I mean,
Okay.
yes, we
Okay.
got two very, very, very low hanging fruits. Like they're so low hanging that as you're walking through the apple orchard, they smack you in the face. So I'm
Don't
glad
be
somebody
negative.
picked that.
Vince, don't be negative. It's okay.
Sure.
Those things needed to be adjusted.
I agree. No disagreement. So let's talk about the actual
Well,
changes.
Adjustments needed to be made. Now, whether they needed to like swing the hammer as hard as they did, that's another discussion.
Well, let's talk about these two things because you brought it
Yep.
up.
Yeah.
And Eric, have you seen all the points changes and all the rules changes? Have you seen all the FAQs?
I'm here to talk narrative. Your match play bullshit. It matters not to me.
Gotcha. Fair enough. All right. So obviously the Gaunt now summons 5 pinkies, which gets rid of the standard.
The standard bearer.
the
And it
standard-
cuts the wounds in half.
It does.
Like
It's 25
from
wounds instead of 50.
25 wounds instead of 50, which is a huge jump, by the way.
Fine. No issue there. I was good with that change. There were several
Yeah.
ways they could have changed it. You've pointed out some other ways. Like they could have jumped him straight to summoning blues. They could have jumped it to where you always can only replace models, as you've mentioned, of the lowest
Yep.
type in the unit. So that way you can
Yep.
never restore pinks once a pink is dead, basically.
Yep.
like there are lots of options that they could have pursued. They took this one. I think it's a fine change. Like, okay, I had no problem with it. It seems like it accomplishes the right thing. That combined with the points adjustments on Zinch, I was like, yeah, all right, it's fine. Seems like it corrected the problems.
I'm really mixed on where Zinch lands now. Like I'm really like it makes me sad that like some of their other stuff didn't come down. Like Arcanites and Zangor and stuff like that. And so I just like, but this is the cycle. Like things that are too high, that are overtuned, have to be brought down before we can actually start like giving them like.
Often that's the case, though not always.
Yeah, it's true. Like I wish that they would have made some aggressive points changes on things like Arcanites, on things like Zangor. But that's just me.
Yeah, sure. So I mean, I don't want to dive too deep into this,
Sure.
but we'll discuss a little of it. I mean, Eric says that little comment, but yet I can see Eric over your shoulder. I'm not I know just behind you. Let's all notice that just behind Eric's shoulder back there, he does have a big custom ironclad he's working on. So,
I'll bring this over here.
There you go. I know you too are one of the custom ironclad boys like myself.
Yeah. I've got 2 separate custom ironclads for 2
Nice.
separate, not dwarf armies.
That's right, exactly. They're not for dwarf armies, obviously. No. So yeah, I mean, let's just quickly spin through this. I think the Petrifex Elite change was a bit mystifying. Obviously, it's a fairly useless ability. As written, it doesn't work on Mortek at all for the most part, and it doesn't do anything if Nagash is in the army. And sure, like occasionally on your ponies or other people, it'll do some stuff. So it's not like it does nothing. It's just certainly minimally impactful at most.
Truly redundant.
Yeah, it's very frequently redundant.
They could have done a lighter touch maybe with like ignore rend of 1 or decrease all rend by 1.
Sure. Or killed since Petrifex is supposed to be the super defensive force.
Right. Get rid of the rend and do something else.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Right.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean they could have cut that part of the ability, since like the narrative of Petrifex is that they're all dinosaur bones or whatever, something like that,
Right.
And
they're fossilized. Yeah.
Yeah. And so the idea being that they could have cut the offense part instead of the defense part. I'm not sure.
I agree.
But either way, okay, it certainly solved the Petrifex problem. Like, we can all agree it solved the problem.
Right.
Whether it was like actually the right change, I think, is a very different subject.
Yeah, I mean it's a conversation. Like I feel for those players. That's what I'll say. The 10% of the 10% of the meta that had OBR.
Sure, doesn't matter. They'll switch to Mortis Praetorians and life will go on. And now Catacross will be on the table instead of Nagash, and that's fine. The army's still fine.
Yep. I don't disagree with that.
Sure.
Well, I'm just going to clarify my glib answer to your question in that narrative players do care about balance, and they do care about that sort of stuff because I think at the end of the day, you want that core to be balanced enough that when you add stuff on top of it, it doesn't break it further.
Yeah.
Obviously. Yeah. I just didn't want anybody who's new to a narrative conversation. I don't need to propagate these stereotypes.
Indeed.
All the Mortal Realms guys, when we have them on here, you're all propagating those narrative player stereotypes. Yeah.
It's funny.
I do want to, obviously, it's going to be the ironclad in the room. Like, KO got massive cuts.
Massive cuts. Too big. Let me say this. Enjoy your 6 months of those cuts. Because those are not sticking. Not all of them.
Maybe. Well, the reason why I say maybe is we may not have events to actually.
Doesn't matter. We didn't have a lot of events for this whole 6 months. The book is getting locked, or not the book. Sorry, the PDF point changes will get locked in September, maybe.
Sure. Yep.
And that'll be 2 months before they do the points for the next General's Handbook, which is a problem.
Yeah. I mean, what I would say is this. I think a 10% cut largely across the board for everything that wasn't, infantry is significant. Sure. A number of the heroes. And so what I would say is, I think some of the points were warranted. I suspect, and I've talked to Gary Percival, and he agrees with me in this, we suspect that it's probably too far. Like truly, it's too far.
Sure.
In a number of the areas, like for example, nowhere in my wildest dreams would I have imagined that the Endred Master on dirigible would have come down.
Right. Sure.
I don't think that I would have imagined that the gun hauler would have come down.
No, it seemed fine. I agree with the frigate cut. That felt right.
Yeah, the frigate cut feels right, even though like a lot of people are like 7 frigates, like, but frigates actually have like a baked in restriction that a lot of people don't understand about like carrying troops. Because if there are any heroes, you can't actually have a 10-man unit.
Yeah.
Like,
They're one of the harder. They're actually one of the harder boats to manipulate.
Yes.
For various reasons.
Yeah.
So no, I don't mind that. I could have seen it at 230. Like same thing with the Ironclad, 480, 490 wouldn't have made a difference to me.
Like I don't, but like again, Ironclad, like I didn't see the points coming down on that. Like that surprised me. Sure. Admiral, like I've been a long proponent that the Admiral needs to come down, and I think 120 is his points. Like I think that that's probably accurate.
Sure.
Especially because he only has like 2 melee attacks or whatever. And so maybe he has 3. I mean, regardless, he's not.
He's decent. He's decent, and I'm fine with it for 120. I don't
at 120, I think he's fine. But yeah, just like, and then on top of all that, Warp Lightning Vortex coming down to 80.
We mentioned. Right. I don't know if that was talked about or not. If we actually mentioned it outright, but that is, again, that spell should be unmade from the game. It should have gone up to 200 points. Okay, and just like forgotten about.
You should have seen the chat in the KO chat when those pages first leaked. Everybody was like 80.
Yeah, sure. I mean, and you literally you got enough points drops in almost any KO army you build to include that now for free.
Yes. Yep.
Sure.
Yeah, and so I'm real mixed on it actually. The KO points drops. I will say this: the PDFs that just got released, and then even the other book were very good for Duarden.
Sure, it's dwarf time. If you're a fan of the stunties, it is. Yeah, it's your time. It's your time to shine, boys.
Yeah, it is your time to just go hog wild.
That's right.
I mean, Ironbreakers came down, which like I couldn't have seen a bunch of the dwarves coming down in cities. Like that surprised me. But we'll see.
Were a pretty good deal. You get so many of those dudes now, so cheap on a 3-up save.
It's true, but there's not a lot of like. And here's the flip side: like, there's not like Duarden don't have a strong presence in the meta right now, and so it'll be interesting to see if that changes or not. I don't know.
Just seeing list discussion, there's going to be some dwarves flooding some tables at armies near you real soon. Sure. A lot of round 1 2-up save Tempest Eye Ironbreakers.
I suspect, like I don't know this for a fact. This is me speculating. I suspect that we saw the across the board boat changes in KO because they want to incentivize KO armies that look like that they are boat heavy.
Sure, that have a lot of boats.
They want to like I think they recognize that they want the KO ships to be the hallmark of that army. And when you look at the table, they want the profile of that army to be boats.
Which is cool.
Which I get. And so I don't have a problem. I mean, I ran a 3-boat army during my insane weekend of like bunch of games with Vince. And I like the all-boat army, and I like it better now because then I have enough to have some additional like units. So we'll see.
My Tempest Eye list got significantly cheaper between all the changes, so I was stoked.
I mean, what I'll say is this: I'm interested to see what happens moving forward. I do think that some of the KO changes were probably too much, and I'm not going to be surprised to see some of that stuff like dialed back when we I could see the Ironclad and the Gun Hauler changes. Like I could see both of them shooting back up. I could even see the Frigate maybe going up 10 points. I could see the Endred Master jumping back up.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll see.
Sure. Cool. Eric, any other thoughts?
No, I mean I agree. I mean the things that I've been focused on is boats and flying things, and having that stuff come down. I mean the KO chat was wild when that book came out. It was probably the only WhatsApp chat that I followed because I was in the midst of trying to build stuff, and yeah, I mean I think getting more boats on the table, like it's the imagination of what this army is. It's what inspires people. Again, I've said it before. I think KO is probably one of the single most inspiring armies that GW's put out for AOS. And to to muffle just having people shelve their boats is ridiculous. So
Yeah, completely agreed. Look, I didn't build this freaking aircraft carrier for nothing. Okay,
No,
like that's
yeah.
it's there for a reason. All right.
Indeed.
Yep.
So yeah, there you go.
So lots of point changes. There were some surprising omissions.
Yeah, Lord Croak not being in the list is a crime against humanity. Like that is get out of here. Get out of here. And anybody in the comments who is about to launch some kind of no, he's really more expensive because you've got to buy this other stuff defense. You can take a long walk off a short pier. That is ridiculous. He is undercosted in the worst way. Like he is Skaven, original Skaven levels of undercosted. And yeah. I even then with them, an army I love, my first army. I read that initial. You can go back and watch that first Skaven review, and I watched it, and I was like, this stuff is too cheap. Like we got to bump some points here. This guy is not going to last at this points value. I called for it then. I'm calling for it now. I am consistent. Yeah, and that's not just because they ate my god.
Yeah, like
partially, but not completely.
Vince? You would say that you'd be okay if you had a 50% point bump, right?
Is sure. That accurate statement? Yeah, like put him at 480. Sure.
If he went up to 480.
Yes, I think that's probably too much, but he certainly should be. He's certainly a 400 something point hero.
Right.
Find the two numbers that come after the 4 where you think it fits, but that's the correct number. The first, you ever play? Remember, the Price is Right game where you're like trying to guess the cost of the car, and you got to like fill in the numbers slowly. Like that's what it is. Like the first number is 4. The gentlemen have spoken. Okay, we can argue over the last 2. That's fine. I mean, I guess the third one's a 0. We don't do 5s.
Somebody made a comment about Nighthaunt not getting points love. Naga Knocker. What I would say is that Nighthaunt have a more fundamental problem that they're dealing with, and at the end of the day, points aren't going to fix their problem. Because the things, like it's just there's issues there with the War Scroll design, the keyword stuff, the ability synergy, all of the everything. And I like the points changes that Nighthaunt made. Like it actually, like for my army, it let me add a unit. The points changes that did happen, but not everybody is running a Death Riders Condemned duelist, right?
Right.
like so all of the everything that I did in Nighthaunt came down in points, right? Like almost everything on my list came down, and yet still I look at that and I'm like, that are Fire Slayers, Fire Slayers.
Sure.
That are KO, KO. And so, what I'll say is this: I think Nighthaunt are fine. They are a fat middle army. I think that a good general can do well with them. But I would also say that I think that there's some more fundamental development changes that need to be made.
Yeah. Overall, fun stuff. Did Sally's go up enough? Somebody asked. No, probably not, but that's fine.
We'll find out.
Yeah, I mean, it's a better situation than where they were, so I'm cool with it. I mean, the Marauder change is laughable. The Chaos Warrior change is laughable. Those are both the wrong changes. Those are both War Scroll changes, not points changes. Trying to fix that with points is like slapping a Band-Aid over an arterial cut. Like it's not doing the work there. We need some stronger treatments employed. Yep. So, but yeah, I mean, overall, I was like fine enough. Most of these were good. They addressed Croak aside. They addressed most of the issues I thought that really needed addressed. So, as far as like kicking things that needed kicked, there wasn't quite enough dropping things I thought needed dropped amongst some of the forces, but that's okay. Like on the whole, yeah, I mean, good. Could have been better, but good. I give it like a solid 6 out of 10 for the efficacy of the points changes overall.
Yeah,
there you go. That's my rating. 6 out of 10.
But just like we talk about how much like a box of models costs and how many hours of enjoyment we get out of it, like any points change brings hours and hours of talking about it. So it's just the gift that keeps on giving.
It really is true. It is a wonderful, wonderful gift whenever we're given these changes because the hay that gets made for content creators. Yes.
Yep.
Yeah. If only we had a Rapunzel like you guys.
There you go. Okay. So, cool. Other interesting pieces of news beyond the FAQ, which we're not gonna like. There have been plenty of shows that have dove deep into every single point, and
Right.
I'll point you. We can point towards some in our pick of the week, but
Mhm.
um, the other big news is we did get confirmation that the rest of the Lumineth will drop in September today, because that was sort of a
Yep.
just an interesting writer on an article they put out of people's studio armies.
Has anybody called that out as a bunch of bull?
You're saying that they're lying. You're saying it's all shenanigans. It's a ruse.
No, I'm punning
Oh, okay.
because they're bulls.
Now I get it. Now I get it.
Che- Cheers.
Indeed, indeed. No, I don't think anybody has. Although
No,
that is
I'm
great. That
claimed
is
it.
great. It is. It is definitely. Uh, it is definitely sad that we have to wait a little more than a month for people to get their hands on those sweet, sweet cow-related elves. Uh,
Ugh.
all the elves people are playing with now have no cows. There's no cow action. It's a
I
problem.
love it. I love it.
Cowardly.
I am anti-Hashit.
Sure, sure. But to me, the best model is yet to come, which is obviously the giant cow mountain guy.
Yeah.
One of the better models they've made. That dude is awesome.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's an elf figure I can get behind. Uh, so at any rate, um, yeah, we know they're coming in September, which leaves the question of sort of what else we're getting when, right? Like, is the Sons of Behemoth gonna sneak out there somewhere, right? Or because that's clearly just the book and one new kit.
I'm
Could
calling
sneak
September.
it out on a
I think
weekend.
I think those are September.
Yeah, I mean, probably.
Yep.
Let me live in a bit of hope, Tom, where I can say there's a chance. We know that the Underworld's warbands are coming in August, because they
Yep.
did confirm that in
Yep.
the Underworld's article.
Yep. Yep.
That we're getting the Daughters and the other Iron Jaws one in August. So we know those are going to sneak in on some 40K weekends.
Yep.
Yeah.
And
And I'm glad that's happening. I mean, for those of us who are, or for everybody who's collectors, like, I think that's good. There's part of me that wants that stuff to wait, and like the Warcry stuff when it comes out, to wait until we can get back into playing games again, because
Sure.
that stuff drives like real community participation and gets people back out to the stores and that sort of stuff. So it feels a little bit wasted on that end to have it coming out when we can't get together and play. But I mean, I know that a majority of this is of our community is hobby. So, and they need to make money. I just, yeah, it's one of those where I'm like, oh, I wish it was, we were able
Yeah.
to get out to the store.
you're
And
going to
it was
get these
driving
sweet
people.
new warbands, and they don't take that long to get painted up, and then you're not going to
Right.
be able to get them painted. It's a shame.
Yeah.
We also got the confirmation that we're going to get season 4 in December, basically, and they showed like the silent ones. That's the image for the new season, the face of the silent ones in December.
Yeah.
So, and I agree. Somebody said the new Brutes models are incredible. I completely agree. They are really, really great. I talked about, we obviously covered them when they initially spoiled the models, but yes, I do super agree. I mean, every Brute model ever is amazing. Brutes are like, just, they are the best orcs. They are the best orcs by far. So they just look super cool.
I don't disagree with that.
Yeah, I mean, I was happy to see. I think those points finally got to the right place. Just to swap back to that, because like Brutes came down 10, our boys went up 10. Feels like exactly the right change to me. That was actually a points conundrum. They feel like they're in exactly the right place right now, where we'll see a nice little mix of those. I'm good with it, so I was happy about that. Cool. I mean, clearly, what we're going to be mostly seeing over the next couple weeks is Indomitus stuff, right? Obviously, that.
Yep.
It launches this weekend. You're already seeing people getting, being able to pick them up in certain ways, in certain places, and, it's going to be all the stuff, because actually after Indominus they have to release all the other things, all the other figs. So we got to get that Silent King, that sweet Silent King model, and that cool big Satan shard of the Void Dragon. I think that's what he is. Did I remember all those words correctly?
Probably.
I think I did.
I gotta say, the new Necron stuff has gone like away from the humanoid,
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of had hoped that OBR had gone less humanoid. Like their like elite, 3 model unit is way cooler than the OBR elite 3 model unit.
Like the big Scorpec destroyers or whatever those
Yeah,
dudes.
yeah. So I really like the design choices they made for that army, and it's a cool.
How
cool
many
update.
people are going to use Necrons to play as OBR? How
Oh
many
God,
people are
now I gotta.
I mean, it just feels like a slam dunk, right? Like the Silent King is clearly just a Catacross stand-in. He's a big diorama base. He's sitting there, whatever. That's easy to go. That's easy to do. You can even replace the terrain piece with the monolith, with the new monolith, and put that because it can stand up tall, so it's fine.
Yeah.
So I mean, like this, it really does feel like some slam dunks there, and obviously just regular Necron people can be your Mortek card. So again, easy.
Easy.
Use the big War of the Worlds walkers as your Gothazar harvesters with their long them big long tendrils coming out.
Yeah. And there's so many heroes. There's that one guy that's like, isn't he sucking up like a humanoid or something like that?
Inquisitor Sazerac or whatever.
Yeah.
I think that's his name. He's special. Yes. Yep.
So.
Anyway, I don't know how to pronounce any of their names. I'm sure I'm butchering all of them, but yeah. I think those guys would be pretty good stand-ins. Yeah, they're like the big forearm dudes from OBR could just be Scorpec destroyers or whatever, like you mentioned. Like that's pretty straight. So, it's going to happen. Like somebody just 1-to-1s it.
Yeah.
Which
I'm okay with. Like I could see again, some people have said that they think that KO may have been testing the water for squats. And I agree with that. And so it wouldn't surprise me if we see something along that line as well.
There you go. Illuminor Cesarus.
Yeah.
That's what he is. That's what his name is. I was close. I had I had similar syllables.
I was in a Xenos frame of mind when I said it.
Yeah, I was in the neighborhood. I was off a couple blocks, but I was pretty close to the address.
Right number of apostrophes.
There you go. That's right. Okay. And I think that's basically all of our news.
Yeah.
Right on. All right, let's talk about some pick of the week. Eric, what would you like to share with everybody?
I've got a couple, if I may. The first one is if anybody is interested in it's hard to play some games right now. But being hosted by on Twitter, how do I say this? I can't use words right now. Animosity Campaign is kicking off today, I believe. And Animosity Campaign is an online narrative campaign hosted by Nuno M on Twitter and Aaron Bastian, part of the Neo Network. And they're just what they're doing a little bit differently is that you can participate similar to like Seasons of War, if you remember that from a few years ago. You can game, you can hobby, you can write short stories, you can do storytelling, you can do arts and crafts, you could probably create video content and post it up. You participate with them, I believe, on their Discord server and kind of connect with some people around narrative play. And so if that's something that you're just looking for some more kind of social around the armies you're building, that sort of stuff, they're putting up something pretty cool. And then in hopefully a couple of weeks, the Mortal Realms crew is going to be putting on our very own Soulbound actual play stream. We're going to figure this out. We're going to bungle it up real good. We're going to have a lot of fun doing it. We're calling it Rollbound. And the first arc is 8 episodes, and it's called Realm Gate Hunters. So we're just going to see if we can tell a story in 8 parts and have some fun.
Nice.
That's a lot of parts. You can certainly tell a story. Whether or not it's a good one, that remains to be seen.
Oh, it's yeah, exactly.
But I have all faith in you. It will be.
Well, thanks. It's a new space. We've been, doing podcasting and relying on our vocal cords for all this time now. Our faces have to do some of the work, and it's not looking good for us.
Nice. Tom, what about yourself?
I've yielded my time to Eric. So
you have no pick. Is that what you're saying?
That's what I'd say.
All right. Well, I'll do 2 for you then. All right, pick the first. If you want to get more detail on the points changes and those kinds of things, I recommend our good friend AOS Coach, who put up a really nice video going army by army that you can see up on the screen right now, and talking about all the points changes and the implications and the changes there. Coach is, and as always, a pillar of the community and a great dude, so I'll link that down in the show below. Take a drink. Okay. And secondly, I want to direct everybody to a personal thing. There's a survey. It will show up in the show notes. I apologize I didn't get it included before that. I will. I'll actually probably drop it while we're sitting here talking, so it'll be in the description. But it'll certainly be in the description post when the show goes, or when the show is uploaded. And it is a survey about balance. And I would ask everybody who's watching this or is watching this in the future, please go fill out the survey. It will be very helpful. We are going to be covering it next week on the show. The more responses we get, the better conclusions we can draw, or at least the better correlations we can draw. And so I am very interested in this one. I think it's very much focusing on what I hope is things people care about. It has to do with the latest GHB, how people feel about the changes, and most importantly, question number 1 is you have to pick one and only one of your main army you play. The question that has caused people much consternation.
No end of their consternation.
Yes. But yes, you must, and there's a purpose for that. I have a design on that why I'm forcing you to first state what your main army is. Mm-hmm. There is a reason. And so, yes, Tristan said my army wasn't listed. That is funny. I didn't put Tomb Kings on the list. I don't know what to tell you. I guess pick OBR, Tristan. That's the answer.
We'll know what you mean.
Nudge, nudge, wink, wink.
I did include all current non-Legends forces, but I should have thought of that. So, but there we go. And I know a lot of people say, but I play lots of armies. Sure you do. But you have one favorite. Gun to your head, you can pick one. So there you go. It'll be in the description, Randall. I will, like I said, I meant to drop it in before the show and didn't. It will be in the description after the show goes live. So there you go. Tristan's response is great. He said he picked cities. Get bent. And I'm like, yes, it's a great response and perfectly fair, Tristan. I don't know what to tell you, man. Stop playing dead armies. So at any rate, please do fill out that survey. No, it will be very helpful, and it will. The more information we get, the more people to fill it out. I think there's a lot of interesting things about how we need. What I want to talk about next week is how we need to think about balance and push for and agitate for change as a community. Given what's going on right now, GW is being very responsive. They are trying and doing a largely good job of making the game good and fixing problems where they come up. But I do think there is a better way we can redress this, and I think if we as a community, and I know how I would personally do it, but I honestly don't just want to sit around and yell myself my own personal opinions. It means a lot more if all of you fill out the survey and we have raw data and go, look, here's all the people who are saying this is also what we need, because then all of your voices join mine. And if it turns out that you want something different than what I think the right answer is, that's great. Then I can adjust my priors accordingly and stop agitating for change that people don't want. Which, so all in all, it's a positive thing. So like I said, I'll make sure to get it linked up there. Okay, great. Let's talk about some hobby time. So, Mr. Stone Monk, I know you've been super busy, but you got that big boat. You want to bring that back up here and just kind of show everybody? Because I'm not sure everybody got to see it. I'm going to lock onto you here. This is just a truly beautiful thing you've been working on.
Well, this was, I know that, I think you had put out your first kind of whirlwind boat using the Sector Mechanicus Terrain when I was kind of picking this stuff out. So you slipped in there, but it was validation. I always see when somebody else does something like first, I always feel like it's a gateway for everyone else. And so, I just I put together kind of half section of some of the Sector Mechanicus, I don't know, whatever they're called. I didn't bother to learn all their names.
Sure.
And my big, I guess, man-eater / what what are the ogres with the flame ogres? Gosh darn it,
Firebellies.
Firebellies.
Mhm.
Runs this thing, and it was some narrative that came out of my other KO army, and brought this guy and said, "Hey, he's got to have his own stuff." And so had been working on that a lot at the beginning of the year, before, actually, kind of in the first month of kind of quarantine, and then in the last month after the new whatchamacallit, Mechanicus stuff came out, and the wings off of that flyer came out.
Yes.
Was able to kind of complete this thing. I'd taken and made a cog griffin, and tried to keep it in the pose of the regular.
Beautiful. It was
griffin.
beautiful.
Thank you. And so yeah, I mean, it's one of those where it had just been sitting there, and I wanted to get it complete, and I was able to complete this and a few other pieces. I don't quite have 100 points of it completed, or 1,000 points of it completed, but met some hobby goals. And then other than that, when obviously over the past few months, when Soulbound came out, it's been a lot of kind of melding my love, or transferring or melding my love of D&D, and my love of the AOS, the Mortal Realms lore, and space, etc. And it's been really fun, kind of being in community with other people around the lore, even more so than when we're just reading the books and we're talking about the books and doing kind of informal book clubs with people who follow our show. This feels like a chance to just, I guess, even more so get into the narrative. And so Soulbound and the reception of that has been really positive. And I was glad to hear, watching your guys' stream with Mephisto as the GM has been fantastic. And I know that obviously you guys are big role players and have been role playing for a long time. So it was great seeing how much you guys were enjoying it. And so, yeah, I mean, it's kind of just one more thing that as a community we get to learn about the lore of this place, and that's something I just really enjoy. And it creates a lot of tools for playing our games on the tabletop as well. So.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, Soulbound has been really fun. We'll be back to the game this week. I apologize, everybody. We've had a couple weeks off through basically scheduling conflicts. We'll be back. Tom might not be this week, but we will be back.
I'm sorry, folks.
We don't need the dwarf anyways.
It's true.
But I absolutely love that. And we'll be talking about the Anvil of Apotheosis here in a second. But I absolutely love that each of you picked kind of the model or the army that most exemplifies you and what you play, and made characters for them.
Absolutely.
And it's the power. It's what it allows you to do. So that's really cool.
No, it's great how many of us made and picked characters that we can't. Both Tom and I made characters that we can't make in the Anvil of Apotheosis, which is exciting.
That's true.
So that's nice. We got that going for us.
Well, here's the thing, though. It's in the narrative section, so there is no can't.
Oh, that's true. We can always break the rules.
You can always break the rules.
The rules tell us we can't, but we don't have to listen to those. I do agree. Okay. Tom, what have you been working on? You get any hobby in?
No. I'm not gonna lie. Nope.
Okay. You need to get some hobby back on, Tom. You're done. You're done with GMing. You ran a great game. It was fantastic. It was a wonderful marathon. We all had a great time. We're excited about the unexpected part 4 in our increasingly inaccurate trilogy of stories. And now it's time to get back to that hobby table. Get them books off of there. Too many books back on that table. We got to get rid of.
I know.
Put those away. Get the hobby stuff back on the shelf. That's what we need. Okay. All right. For myself, obviously, I did finish this thing up. It's behind me now. I'm going to turn the chair the wrong way. There you go. It's all back there. My display board and that thing. Where exactly it's going to go, I have no clue. I don't know where I'm going to store that thing. But I'm hoping I get to use it sometime in this year. You have been officially replaced as my partner for Holy Havoc, Tom. So now I just gotta get a.
Who's your partner?
Well, I'll figure. I'm not just gonna say at this point in time. I want to make sure all the T's are crossed and I's are dotted.
I have my suspicions.
Do you now? I bet if I gave you 5 guesses, you wouldn't get it, but that's all right.
Okay, maybe I wouldn't. So
That's all right. We've a new challenger has entered the field, and I'm excited about it. Now I just got to figure out how to work. Perhaps one of the 8 armies that's up on the screen right now into my army for our combined team.
dun dun dun.
There you go. At any rate, I finished that up, and then I decided I wanted to work on something that wasn't that because that project was ridiculous. So I got 2 very different projects. One, I was sent this very nice figure by someone, which is like this sort of woman sitting in repose. It's this very like classical art piece. It looks like it came out of an old master's painting, and so she was a fun chance to work on really interesting flesh tones and oils and stuff like that. And so I'm just refining her, but she's fun. Just a nice little, very different, completely for the love of the art piece.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm also doing this guy, another Space Marine. So this is another Crimson Fist, my new favorite thing to paint. All Marines I paint have to be fist related. Only fisting here on this channel. That's all we're gonna do.
Delightful.
And so Imperial Fists and Crimson Fists only. So this guy, and I am recording him because people had asked about it. I'll tell you right now, I use oil paints for this as well, because there is I cannot imagine doing a Space Marine not in oil paints anymore. These like big monochromatic figures like this, where they're all basically in one color, and you're trying to do like high reflection, near NMM type stuff. Doing like this work, obviously it's coming through like crap and you're not going to see anything, but like this guy has pretty significant reflections and counter reflections and shadows, and doing all of that work was like getting him to that point like maybe an hour. That's it. It's like it's so ridiculously fast. I cannot imagine doing it in acrylics. So we'll do acrylics for the detail, but I'm painting how I'm going to paint, and there you go. All right. So, yeah, plenty on my hobby desk, and I'm excited to finish that guy up. I need to record the rest of it, but I think I'll probably finish the girl first, because she's fun. And I needed something that wasn't a gaming piece, to as a sorbet, to clear the palate, as it were. Okay. So, gentlemen, let's talk narrative, shall we?
Let's do it.
Chaos Spawn said, Ed, speaking of oils, any plans to interview James Wapple? Chaos Spawn, you need to go look at that playlist again, buddy. I did interview him about 2 months ago, and yes, he was great, and it was awesome. James is a good dude. So it has already happened. So the narrative section. Now, obviously, the narrative section of this book is very specific this time. I want to talk, just real quick, I want to make a mention on the open play section. Have you, Eric, looked through the Skies of Slaughter campaign stuff at all?
I have not.
Okay, so it's pretty cool. Let me just say, like, we're not going to dive into it in a big way, because obviously I didn't prep everybody to talk about this. But 2 things I'll say about it. One, it's pretty neat. It's kind of a cool set of rules around how you do this aerial combat. It does feel a little more like planes fighting each other, basically, is I think how I would describe it.
Yeah.
But it's pretty cool, and like you bank and you turn and like you swirl,
wheel,
and, like different things. Yeah, it's that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
which is cool. And different monsters have different abilities to do all of those things. Like some are more maneuverable than others, and tougher than others, and recover better than others, and so on and so forth. So it's cool stuff. The reason I mention it though is because what this section showed me is like, we talk about like the need to change war scrolls, and there seems to be like a resistance to that. And yet here in this section is like 50 war scrolls of flying monsters completely rewritten from the ground up. Okay? For all of these flying monsters. And as I was looking through this, I was like, this is an incredible amount of work. And I know Jervis worked on this first part. Like, it's an incredible amount of work he did. Because it isn't just like, oh, let me slap together some rules and this is how your little flying monsters go pew-pew against each other. Like, he went to the foundation and built back up everything in the War Scroll. They're very different. If we could do that, we can get better Marauders. I'm going to leave that there. Okay?
Sure.
So, cool. The narrative section itself largely breaks down into two main sections, which is the team battles, special rules, and the associated campaign, and then the Anvil of Apotheosis. And then, of course, there's like the appropriate multiplayer battle plans. So I thought we'd kind of tackle that as is.
Well, and I will say a couple of things I want to lead in with too is that like by definition, narrative adds complexity to this game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sure, absolutely, absolutely correct.
It's which can be a barrier of entry for some people. It certainly it's one of those things where I think most people that are developing narrative events or adding narrative, you're trying to add the right amount or just enough to make it feel different, to make actions or the models themselves feel like they are in your imagination and that the story comes out more out of it. But it's always going to be a little bit more complex. Mm-hmm. And the second thing I'll say is I think they should have led this chapter with the Anvil of Apotheosis.
Yeah.
I agree with that.
Because when I jumped into this very first section, I was like, what? I'm doing what now?
Right. Yeah, you're not wrong.
I'm writing notes now.
Yeah. Sure.
And on its head, like you take that out as being like the first thing you read. Again, even narrative I'm pretty open-minded when it comes to narrative because I'm like, all right, what can I chew on? What's the mechanic that's going to help me kind of imagine better? So I'm open to this, but as the opener for the chapter, it felt a little bit of a miss.
Yeah, I can see that.
But yes, top of the order though, playing in teams is a great thing to start with, and there's some pretty cool stuff in this chapter overall. Obviously, the big thing that people are talking about is the Anvil.
Sure. Yeah, so I mean, we can cover this because I do want to give it its time. I think it's actually really cool, because you're right. Like you're absolutely like I hadn't thought about that honestly, Eric, but you nailed it because when you jump into this chapter and the first thing you read is the Fog of War rules for the lines of communication.
Yeah.
Wherein you're like, before the battle begins, players are given 10 minutes in which they can freely discuss strategy and tactics. Once the battle begins, players in a coalition can only discuss strategy and tactics if the generals of each of their armies are within 3 inches of each other. Otherwise, they have to use handwritten letters to communicate, and they have to declare whether they're sending them by land or by air. And then there's like different results of when you can open the letter and is the letter lost, and I'm like, whoa, I am in the deep end here, like right away, because I read that and I was like, really? That's pretty crazy. Right?
Yeah, it's one of those things like where when you're doing narrative. So the other thing I'll say is what I like about this is I'm going to say it, and I'm trying to remember the past General's Handbook, but this feels like the first narrative section of a General's Handbook where they are kind of going for it in terms of adding some additional meat, mechanics, kind of pieces of the game, side games maybe to this. So I never want to like stop the experimentation or like say this was a bad idea to shoot for, and I've not played it, right? I've not done it, so I can't say. So this is one of those things where like so the problem they said is like, okay, we want it to feel like it's not so easy being with other armies or even having a partner army, a team member. How do you make it so it feels like that Fog of War? Well, you stop people from talking, right? And the question is, can you work through this step by step? Write a letter. Who's it for? And I think in a little bit they talk about having a game master.
Right.
It's so clunky. Like I was trying to imagine writing those letters and going through all the hoops, and I was like, yeah.
It's tough. Like even the declaring charges portion. I think one of the things that might have made people more comfortable if they wanted to keep this in here was they could have said, here's a whole list of potential special rules to introduce into your narrative team games, right? And here's kind of the features and benefits of doing that, right? Which I do like like they have some designer notes, but they're not really selling you on why. And I think when that's one of the things they're missing in this. Like they have designer notes that are like, if players accidentally talk about tactics, you should penalize them. And I'm like, oh geez, that's harsh.
Yeah.
Like I think when you're like narrative, you're right. It does add more weight. And if you're trying to sell somebody on more stuff, you've got to connect the features and the benefits, right? Anybody who's ever sold a product knows that that's what you've got to do.
Absolutely. Yep.
And
it needs to one, you got to agree on the premise. Hey, we want
right.
there to be a fog of war. And then second, the mechanic has to be just right, because you're still playing an entire game on top of that. It can't put too much on the players or the group to think more. Now, as you mentioned, like I do like, so there's aspects of this I like. So like having pieces of paper is not necessarily something that I like because it's not mechanical. It's hard to know what the rules are, or you write something in and of itself could be convoluted. Like I wrote something to my team member and I got through all my roles, but they still didn't understand what I meant.
Right.
But like declaring charges, like I like the idea of my partner not knowing who I'm going to charge.
Right.
And we accidentally charge the same unit and waste.
I agree. That was what I was going to talk about. That's like
right,
actually a cool part of this I liked, because I read the first rule and I was like, wow, that is weighty. But then the second part I actually really liked, where it was like you don't get to talk about who you're going to charge. Instead, at the start of the charge phase, you note down like this unit's charging that unit. You have to actually say who your target of the charge is, not just who's actually charging. And everybody in the coalition does that, and then you all kind of flip at once and roll, right? And I was like, oh, that's kind of actually a cool kind of the fog of battle. Things are moving too quickly for the lines to communicate. We don't have perfect control of the forces thing. And that's not that one felt like, okay, I could see doing that kind of thing. That seems pretty reasonable, right?
Do you remember when we played our siege game?
Yep.
And in the, I believe it was last year's GHB, where you basically do kind of a rock paper scissors, where I make a decision, you make a decision, and we see how they match up.
Yep.
To see what the benefit or reward or penalty is. I think something like that again, where you're kind of assigning a bonus, or if you have a partner and you're like, okay, I think we're going to go, like we're both going to almost symbolically, let's play. Are we going to be playing the same way? So we both pick one of three things. And if we pick right, we both pick the same thing, then we both gain that benefit. Or something like that, where it becomes very mechanical, right? And can happen really quickly. That might have been an easier one to kind of, again, to swallow and digest. Not to say, I might try the fog of war or the note, or it's something that I think could be adapted. So I think, having it here at least opens the door to what that could be. But something more concrete, I think, is sometimes easier to get people into.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, and then obviously you get the rule, the all the rules around alliance and betrayal. Those are all fine. I had no problem with that. Like the alliance thing about losing your command point made sense. Like if you're splitting a bunch of different grand alliances, okay, cool. So there is some scenarios where betrayal, like one of the things that's I'm remiss is that the open play didn't have even more refined version of Triumph and Treachery in it. Right.
It's one of those. It's like this holy grail of getting that one right, which has a great like betrayal mechanic. The thing is with that is that it can flip flop. Like you betrayal, but that hurts you for one round. Mm-hmm. If you're playing 2 versus 2 and one person decides they just want to give up or whatever, seems like I don't know what the climax is there. I don't know what the payoff is on a single game. Again, we'll get to the campaign in a little bit.
Yeah.
And maybe it makes more sense there. But as a
if
one-off,
it was like a 7-person campaign and you had big coalitions or something, sure, I could see it. But you're right. Like in a normal 2-on-2 game or something, somebody decides to betray. Well, I guess that other person just loses then. I mean,
literally, that's my Monopoly experience growing up.
Right.
And there were fights, right? Like that's not. I don't think that's as appropriate for a group of friends around a table.
Right. I did love that they talked about introducing the GM, which is sort of the next
Yep.
section, introducing a game master. I think that's actually something that's largely it's underexplored. Obviously,
Yeah.
the big narrative tournaments do this. So Paul, who was on here recently, talked about it with the Gibbering Dome,
Yep.
and obviously Aaron, you mentioned earlier, who runs the narrative event at Nova. Those are GM'd narrative events.
Yep.
I know Raw also is a GM'd event, right? I
Yep.
think this is something people just largely don't think about and probably don't have as much exposure to if they don't come from a tabletop role playing D&D esque background, right, where they're used to having an arbiter of some kind. Um, but I like how actually that then affects like the lines of communication where letters can get lost or handed to the enemy warlord, where you can like attempt to assassinate people, right? Which I think is awesome. I love the assassination rules and how that all works. I actually thought that was super cool. And I love the bought favors actually, which can occur in either GM'd or non-GM'd, where you can like slip command points to other people to curry favor, which I thought was super cool. So.
Yep. Yeah, and yeah. So one, I love adding the game master to the vocabulary of narrative play in Age of Sigmar. It makes it less foreign. More people know about it. They're going to be more inclined, when they see a narrative event and the idea of a game master that's going to be more familiar. And then all these little. I love small, compact, modular add-ons that can be fit in different places in a narrative event, like. Even just there's one phase or one part of the day where you're like, all right, there's an assassination table in play.
Right.
Or,
right.
It doesn't have to be heavy and like weigh things down. Being light and flavorful you get a lot of bang for the buck. And something like that.
And obviously as somebody who loves playing their Skaven, I love a good assassination table. And they even put the rats on the page, which was very apropos. So
yeah. Absolutely.
And then all of this rolls into the Whisper engine, which is a coalition campaign.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like a Firestorm-esque.
Yeah. I mean, Tom, what did you think about the Whisper engine campaign overall?
I mean, like, I like what it's doing. I would like a system that allows for both, like, individual, like, two-player games and then multiplayer games.
Sure.
Like the Whisper engine is specifically seemingly designed for multiplayer. I mean, that's always
outwardly stated. They're like, this is for 4 to 7 people, and we're assuming that you're getting coalitions together for most games, right?
Right.
Yeah. I mean, that being said, I don't know that you couldn't adapt it to just be an all-in scrum, but sure.
Yeah. And that's where I'm at, where I think that like its strength is in those type of flexible games.
Yeah.
Yep. The thing that it's doing really well, or some problems that it's solving, is that you can work with an odd number of people.
Yep.
You don't get entrenched teams that steamroll, or cliques that form because there's the bidding process, which is also a little like takes a little bit to wrap your head around.
It does. Yeah. The bidding process is the next thing I read that I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
I mean, you gotta prepare to read it twice. It works, but you just got to really like.
Yeah.
Yep. And then there's that complexity of what you don't spend in the bidding process to get who you want on which side.
Yeah.
You use that to build. That's the size of army you can build. Is an interesting. I like choices like that, risk reward. But what's nice though is again you build your team. The coalition's different every round.
Right.
And so it can feel a little open play in that like your allegiances are flip-flopping every turn.
Yep.
Right.
But it does make it so that everyone can be on a different team and you're less like stuck.
So it's more just like, okay, it's always these 3 people against these 3 people. That's what it's breaking down, just so everybody's clear about what we're saying. Because the nature of the bidding mechanic, you end up having different different coalitions each week that you get together for the campaign. That's what's happening. Because you're bidding out this week where this is going to be the coalition. It's, if you got 6 players, it's 1, 4, and 5 this week. But next week it might be 1, 2, and 5. Or then the next week it might be 1, 5, and 6 or so, or, whatever, right?
Right.
Which is cool. I agree. That does help break that up. And it's interesting that, like, as people dominate, there would be natural inclinations to pull them to a team, but then it gets much more expensive to win them over, and then you end up having a smaller army to actually field. And so that, that's, I think you're right. There is a natural cost there that comes out in the bidding process.
And I think, as you were saying before, like as is, I think it's an open play. It's an open play mechanic. What the struggle will be is like what's the narrative reason for flopping back and forth, or different people joining like one coalition and then the next and then the next? Is it political? Is it year after year? Is it something like that? So this doesn't give us that, but GMs are creative, so we can figure that out.
Sure. I like the map that they give you. It's a very simple map from Shamon, which has some nice, little special things you can take over and give you some cool bonuses. I'd honestly, I'll tell you right now, I don't know if you remember the original General's Handbook, the one that came out in 2006, let's say. That sounds right off the top of my head, which had a huge layer of campaign focus in it, of like different sample maps you can use. I would love if they just had some kind of a White Dwarf article or put it up on the website. Like, I know Phil Kelly and other people on the team really love to make maps. Give us just like 5, 6, 10 different cool campaign maps like this. Just different things we could go and play in. Like one for each realm or something like that. Full of neat locations for that realm. This feels probably about the right amount of space or size. Maybe it could be a little bigger. But, because I feel like armies are going to be kind of bumpy into each other pretty fast, which that's fine. I mean, I don't know if that's a bad thing or a good thing. But I would love to see that kind of article expansion, right? I mean, that just seems like a slam dunk.
Yep. It does seem like there's a really cool process for taking over territories of people who've lost a battle in that round. And then if you get all your territories taken, if there's space on the board, you can start again. Like you've slunk away and you're going to, restart. And I think you could adjust that kind of how long people can last on the map by increasing the number of spaces, right? Everyone's going to get at least one redo, right?
Yeah, sure.
In this particular map. So, yeah,
I agree.
It's a good foundation.
It's actually nice that it's kind of hard to wipe people out.
Yeah.
This is one of the things that happened in a campaign we ran back in like 2007, 8, somewhere around there. I remember we did a campaign and I was playing my Skaven at the time, and there was a Bretonnian player, and I was like, just don't attack me. Because at that time, Bretonnians had like the worst matchup to Skaven. Like, we were their absolute foil. That was just like that was a 90-10 matchup in Skaven's favor. And I was like, listen, Bretonnian player, I'm cool with you. Just don't mess with me, and I won't come after you. Like, there's plenty of other territory. I got other games I want to play. I had played that player already like many times in the past couple months. So I wasn't keen to play them again. And so then, sure enough, the Bretonnian player marches into my territory, and I was like, that's it. I just turned around and wiped him off the map. I just conquered, like, boom, boom, boom. I picked him, like, 3 weeks in a row and just eradicated him from the map. And I was like, that's what you get. You're out of this game now. Don't pick me. I said don't do it. And, like, if we were playing under this, which is a real jerk move, but, whatever.
Thanks, Spike.
Yeah, absolutely.
Way to ruin everybody's fun, Vince.
Hey, I gave him the option. He crossed the line. You get one chance. You get one. That's it. No mercy. At any rate, no, it was cool because, like, in this kind of system, that isn't what would have happened. Right? Because the loser can still pick new territories. Even when you lose the game, you still get to expand. You might have some of your territory taken, but you can still gain back. So you're kind of like lose one, gain one compared to everybody else just gaining one. And even if he had gotten routed, he could have come back on the board. Right. And so just that kind of stuff is cool as the remnants of his armies fled and set up shop somewhere else.
Yeah. And I mean, it could be interesting when you're choosing where you would reset up. Do you make deals with other players? Do you figure out how to position to help somebody close a gap or block a route or, something like that. I don't know.
Yep. No, I love this. I love campaigns. Like, it's been a long time since I've gotten a full size campaign on. Like, in the interim years, most of the campaigns I ran were Wartime or something like that. Small scale stuff, Warcry and Wartime, the smaller skirmish games. I really would love to get a full-fledged, like, army size campaign going again. It's just I think that this, like looking at this, it made me think it'd probably be a good way to do it. Since one, we often play team games almost every week, and two, recently we've had an influx of some additional people who've come and joined us for like our games. So we have the chance to actually expand it because like we went from having like 3, sometimes 4, to having like 5, sometimes 6. So that actually puts us in a position where we'd more often have a good size coalitions. So we'll see.
For
Yeah,
just
go
real quick, for people who are are just craving that, what's that ultimate map experience? Obviously, there's was it Lost Empires, or what was the Empire tiles?
Oh yeah. Mighty Empires, is that what it was?
Mighty Empire tiles.
Yeah.
You can find tons of those, like at Thingiverse and like other places that kind of print that sort of stuff out. Obviously, you can get a big map and pull it out that has come with any of the Firestorm or whatever. You can also take a big like cork board and use a magic marker and just draw a bunch of stuff like this, and then you can like at the end of 8th, we did something like this where I drew a map on a cork board and we glued like shields onto thumbtacks.
Yeah, sure. Yep.
You could move those around and claim your territories. And they have these cool icons here that just so they give you a ton of that fun stuff to get interactive with.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. They give you 3 new coalition battle plans, which are good. One thing I was very sad about with this, I actually like all 3 of these battle plans. I think they're all good and they're actually really cool. But so I always get the limited edition for the GHB because I'm a sucker for that kind of thing. And to be honest, I just like the cards because you get like all the little cards you get the scenario cards, which are great. Which, by the way, in this one they have the realm cards. In this one, for people who didn't get it, so they have that whole the back of the book where you have the rules for the realm. Those come on little cards in the card pack, which was great. They have like the triumphs and the on little cards and the secondary objectives, whatever they're called, auxiliaries or whatever they're called now, auxiliaries I think. Those are all on little cards, but the 3 coalition plans aren't on the scenario cards. You only get the match play scenarios, and previously they've always included the narrative and the other, like in the 2017, for example, you have like the full Triumph and Treachery and the full Coalition of Deathlands. So I was really sad to see that because like I really use those all the time. So come on, GW, you couldn't give me my 3 narrative cards. What the heck, man? Was it that much of a cost increase to this overpriced freaking General's Handbook? You couldn't give me my 3 narrative card scenarios?
Nice. Yeah.
So, there's a minor complaint, but I opened them up and I was like, yay, my scenario cards. I looked through them, I was like, where's the narrative ones? What the hell?
Yeah.
So, anyway. Anywho. So yeah, highly recommend it. It's something I think I want to get trying, like I said. I've really been itching for like a campaign for a while.
Yeah.
And this felt like, okay, cool. This is what I needed to do a team campaign, which is kind of what I had been thinking about. How can we do it? So this is the perfect time. So this was an absolute win for me. I agree with you. Some of the things are a little tricky and like will take some getting used to.
Yeah.
Namely the bidding and the Fog of War write notes. I'll tell you right now, my guess is we'd do the bidding, but we wouldn't do the Fog of War thing. Or we would just subtract, we'd get rid of the bidding and break up the clicks by rolling dice to determine teams.
Yeah.
Right? So there you go.
Yep. Or pulling from a hat or something. I wonder if I want to. I was just looking in the chat, and we've got Corey McCunas says that they were able to play with the Fog of War rules, and after they just once they figured it out, it went pretty quick and was a lot of fun. So give it a chance. Try it out. Use Post-it notes or something.
Totally.
Or I wonder if you could do it with like texts. I bet you could use text messaging.
Sure. I mean, why not?
Yeah.
Why not?
All right. So that then brings us to the Anvil of Apotheosis, the part that everybody's been waiting for.
Yeah.
Eric, why don't you start us off on the Anvil? Overall, what's your overall thoughts on the Anvil of Apotheosis?
Well, what's even better about this approach to giving us narrative mechanics is that it breaks it down into such small pieces that a GM can easily tweak, change, add, manipulate to bring even more possibility into this, right?
Mhm.
There's literally it's like one of those things where sometimes you think you're giving the narrative players like a closed system. Here you go. And the reason it's not in match play is because we are going to play with this thing. And it just breaks down all of the things that you already would expect. I mean, you go back to Holy Havoc with the Warlords, like this is the same stuff, right? You're piecemealing the different aspects of a hero.
Yep.
You're adding a few restrictions, which a couple of the some of them make sense, that prayers go with priests, right? But some of them not so much, where you have to, like, you can't have a warrior priest, or not a warrior priest, but like I don't know. There's some things where you're like, okay, give me a way to bridge the gap here. And so yeah, it's a bunch of little pieces that I can make tiny tweaks to without breaking the whole system, and feel pretty confident that even more customization can come out of it.
I agree. Tom, what's your thoughts on AOA? Beachfront Avenue.
Yeah, I like it. It's acceptable.
Okay. That's a reasonable thing.
I mean, like, what I would say is that at the end of the day, like, I actually really like it.
Yeah.
I think that there's a lot of potential here. I think that it's doing everything that I've wanted it to do. Right?
Mm-hmm. Yep. With a very few exceptions, which I'll talk about, but yes, I agree.
Right. Like, and so I don't know what else I would want out of it. Like, obviously there may be balance concerns or whatever. That's fine. But for narrative games, allowing me to construct my heroes, I'm in.
Yeah.
It's doing it. So that's where I'm at.
I agree. Like I'm just gonna rip these sort of band-aids off right at the top so we can just get rid of them, okay, and not have to deal with these later on. Okay.
Yeah.
There are a couple. Overall, I love this system. I love it. I think it's great. But there are challenges. It feels like version 1, right?
Yep.
There are some things that need to be corrected. I'm just going to rapid fire through them real quick so that, honestly, you and your group could just agree to correct them when you're using these people in your own games, be they narrative, match play, or anything in between, right? And that will that way you can, I think, spot the negative potential. So here we go. Things that don't sit perfectly right with me, okay? And changes that I think need to be made to this. I think for the most part, the archetypes are, like, the ancestries, that is to say, are fine. Like, I didn't see a huge amount of issues with any of them. For the most part, they let you choose the kind of stuff you'd want to choose. They let you do the kind of things you'd want to do. Okay? Great stuff. They do not allow you anywhere in here, and I actually saw Sam mention that he's going to think about this for the GHB FAQ, so we might actually have something like this coming soon where he makes a reference to how you could handle it.
Yep.
But, like, the addition of specific sub-keywords is lacking. So, for example, I can make my guy an Orc, right? An Ironjaw Orc. I can do that, right? And then he becomes a Destruction Orc Warclans Ironjaw's hero. All great stuff, but he doesn't become a mega boss. So, like, by sheer fluke of him lacking that keyword, he can't access a lot of the different command abilities because they're keyed to mega boss. He can't access any magic items in the book because they're keyed to mega boss, right? Or to the shamans, which he is neither of those things, right? So, you know, like that, and there's other examples of this, like you mentioned, Tom, Marine and Skyfarer, right? So, like, there's no way to get that keyword so you could, like, hitch on a boat or board a boat or something like that. You're just like a KO hero who's walking around on foot who, like, for some reason can't get on a boat, right? He's just stuck. And some armies don't deal with this at all, by the by. That's what the only reason it bothers me is because it's inequitably distributed, right?
Yep.
Because, like, if you're a Skaven hero, for example, which, go Rats, you do get to pick, like, MasterClan, Pestilence, Verminous, Skyer, Molder, or Eshin, which means that you can pick from the many times like the command traits
Right.
or the magic items of those particular clans. However, you can't be so like you do get the magic items and command traits there, but you can't be like a claw lord, which then has other implications, right? Even though you might be built like a claw lord, you might be using the claw lord model, you might be a commander and acting for all intents and purposes like a claw lord, but you can't be a claw lord. So like even how much of that matters is very not the same amongst all the armies, right? You look at a lot of the chaos armies and they're just like, well, any Slanesh demon can take these items or these command traits and activate these abilities. Okay, great, I can be that, right? I can fill out that stuff, but I can't be a hedonite, right? Or whatever, which matters a lot in some armies or not at all in others, right? So my point is just watch the keyword bingo. Maybe Sam will address it. My main point is just, I think my personal rule would be let people pick one of those sub keywords, but just one for their heroes as long as it aligns with everything else, right? So like if you're Skaven and all of that stuff, be a Claw Lord. If you're an Orc and you've clearly built yourself to be a mega boss, like if you made a big melee butt kicker hero, just allow, just take the mega boss keyword and like allow everybody to do that and everything is fine. It's pretty easy fix. On the commander archetypes, they need to limit the command abilities to only be activatable once per, like to not be stackable.
Yep.
That's just going to be a bad experience for people if they don't. Like, I know it's narrative, and I know they don't always put that stuff in there because that's more of a match play convention. I think in general they should put that on there because, like, just ramping a unit up to, like, plus 50 million to hit just doesn't feel very fun in any kind of game.
Yep.
Right? Or the opposite is even worse, like lead the defense, where you're just like, well, this unit's 1+ this round, so haha, right? Like, that's kind of not a fun experience.
Yep.
Well, that was I like that a lot, and that was another one of my critiques was, I think there should be 3 levels, champion, captain, or something, and a conqueror.
Right.
I think choosing between like a dragon or like 15 additional skill ability type things. It seems, I haven't built a ton of stuff in here, but it feels like you could build a lot of Gotreks.
Sure. Oh, you absolutely can. Yeah.
Sure.
And you can't get the full-fledged defense that he has. That's the problem.
Sure.
You can build like little crazy chopper dudes on foot who run in with like an exorbitant number of extreme high damage attacks.
Yeah.
But they're and sure, they're going to run around and be like 3+ ethereal, but they will be like, but they're still glass cannons. They melt instantly to mortal wounds or whatever.
Sure.
Yeah.
But somewhere in between, and part of that too is like progression. Starting as a champion, moving, give me some room to move a little bit higher, and then to the final form later on. I think that, but also like putting, on foot heroes in a different level as mounted heroes.
Yeah, sure. So just quick, let me rapid fire these other ones because I've been taking too long to go through this. And I said I was going to get the negatives out of the way quickly. I don't love a lot of the restrictions on things like Acolyte, Commander, and Mage. So for example, like I mentioned, I can't build Skig in here because you can't take Priest, you can't take Acolyte as a Skaven unless you're Pestilence. Skig is most definitely not Pestilence, right? He is I'm a Priest, and like I could build a version of him. If I could just take it. Again, you can ignore these restrictions. Just if somebody has a cool character in mind, do it. Tom's character, who is a dwarven, like you're effectively a wizard in the underlying rules, right? You can't actually be a wizard as a Duerden, which is just like I know that's how it is in the world, but like okay,
yep,
whatever. That's the rules for the general armies. For your individual heroes, it seems like you'd be more fun. So again, just allow people to break those rules. Those restrictions don't actually need to be there. There's nothing that gets outwardly broken. By the way, a Khorne demon or like a Khorne demon priest or a Slanesh demon priest sounds totally awesome. It shouldn't be restricted. There's no reason they could be priests. Like, why not? They should be supplicated to their gods. Like, I understand the greater lore reason, but who cares? The bestial companions, the minor beast and mounted beast, are dramatically overcosted.
Yeah.
Like, they are way too expensive for what you get out of them. They skyrocket your dude instantly into like a huge points category for very, very minimal benefit. There's the average damage added is about 1. Like you literally add about 1 damage against a 4-up save by taking either of those things. And, you're paying 8 DP for like 2 wounds and a move characteristic of 8, which isn't always even that big of a change. Like, skinks already move 8. Ogres already move 8 when they're hungry. Like, lots of things already move at either at or near that speed. Like, so it's often not that big of a movement change. Movement itself is overcosted. On like two points for a single point of move is too high.
Yep.
Especially when you're already capped at 3. So like a 5-inch, person walking going up to 8 is not the end of the world. Ethereal needs some kind of change, so you don't just automatically make everybody ethereal. It's fine in a narrative thing. Just kind of be responsible. There's no reason that every single hero you ever make is ethereal. The second this is ported to match play, there's just no reason to not be ethereal. It's so cheap comparatively. The fact that I can be ethereal cheaper than I can just have some dumb dog following me around that gives me like an average of 1 damage and 1 wound is like exactly that right there is that sums the problem up in the simplest way I can. Being a ghost should not be cheaper than getting a dog from the pound. Okay?
Sure.
So, like, that's fine. And finally, like, heroes should probably have a min cost of, like, 100 points or something like that. Just because otherwise you really are incentivized to just, like, take the base ancestry, give them improvised weapons so you spend nothing on that, and then just like take acolyte or mage and basically get a free wizard for like 30 or 40 points, just outrageously cheaper than what you would normally pay for that guy. And statistically, it's actually about the same as the wizard you're normally paying 120 points for, 100 points for. So characters should just probably be a minimum 100 points.
Are the Destiny points, do they equate to points in the game?
They do, like, in here it has like a little match play thing. Again, I'm sort of sneaking in a little match play thing. At the very end, it says take the number of points you spend on Destiny, multiply it by 10, and that becomes the match play points cost.
Okay, right.
And so again, that last part is only a concern if you're trying to, stick these guys into match play, which I think a lot of people will for their home games, whether or not they show up at a tournament.
I think even in narrative, we still use points a lot,
right?
Because it's just a good. It's a language that's easy to understand,
right.
And so if you wanted to say, hey, you can bring a 200 point, or you can bring two. You have 400 points of heroes if you want to bring 1, or if you want to make 3 or 4. Do something like that. It's just gives you tools to make it easy for people to get into it.
Yeah. So those are the changes I would recommend. Like, do something with Ethereal. I would say, honestly, you could just double the cost of Ethereal, and that would probably be more realistic. Or you could just say Ethereal, like, you could rewrite the rules for Ethereal to say, like, this monster gains Ethereal and has a 4+ save, and that's it. Like, and still up it to, like, 5 points or something like that from the 4 it is right now. And so you can't be, like, 3+ Ethereal, whatever. For the most part, though, other than that, I know that sounds like I mentioned a lot of things, but they're actually pretty minor things. Like, being on a big monster is cool. Vast majority of the upgrades feel cool. The armory feels about right as to what it does. Your ability to upgrade feels about right. Like, the ancestries themselves all feel about right. So it's like, all of that stuff is actually on point. It's just those minor things around the edges that I think need to be tweaked. Like, I could rewrite... I could solve most of the problems here with a 1-page FAQ.
Yeah. Well, and I think things like restrictions, you should be able to buy your way past them.
Yeah, sure.
Because here, if I can make everything ethereal, not just mordants, or not just what is it?
Oh, the malignants.
Malignants, right? If I can make everything ethereal, why can't I make a Skaven priest from Squire?
Right.
I mean, I have elf. What's the keyword for getting on a ship?
No. For hitching on a ship is Skyfarer. For boating is Mariner.
Yeah, I have elves that are going to have the Skyfarer keyword on them.
Yeah.
So that sort of thing, like whatever. So yeah, I mean, it's one of those things that
Yep.
just buy your way past it.
I
So,
agree. Totally agree. Because like your point is so well taken. If I can take a Skaven, make him an ultimate commander, swinging for like 5 damage, and put him on a giant dragon, which is
Yeah.
certainly something I can do, which is nowhere in the Skaven book, right? Like
Yeah.
that's not anywhere in the lore that I checked out, right? But I can certainly build that, which by the way is awesome. That's not a negative. That's a positive and
Yeah.
a big one. Then certainly I should be able to also just have one that's a priest. Like, where are we drawing these lines?
Yeah,
It just they feel kind of arbitrary.
I mean, and the point is to buy a whole bunch of GW kits and mash them together anyway.
Right.
Sure.
So why? Yeah. Why are we restricting whether I call it a priest?
Yeah. I will say that, by the way, when I was talking about the monsters, it's only the little have a dog with you or be on a minor mounted beast that are broken. Because they cost way too much for what you get. Being on a gargantuan beast like a dragon or a maw crusher or a whatever you can imagine, that's actually perfectly in the right place. Like that feels dead on how it should be. If you actually total up what you get, like if you went over and spent on your enhancements what you get out of minor beast and mounted beast, they're correct. You understand what I'm saying? Like they actually cost 6 points and 8 points for the most part. The minor beast is actually a little overcosted, but because it's actually only like 4. But the gargantuan beast is like crazy savings. They are passing out dragons. We have got a dragon overstock and everything has to go. I am Bob from Bob's Crazy Dragon Emporium. Are you looking for dragons? I've got dragons. I will sell you all the dragons you need at bargain basement prices. So yeah, it's a good deal. Cool.
Is there any big monsters that stat better in the Anvil than they do on their own cards?
Yes. Almost all of them. By like almost all of them because of 2 things. One, your damage starts higher on this than it does for most other monsters. Like you have a base damage attack that starts at 4. Okay. And like there are plenty of monsters out there that don't have a 4 damage attack. This is a big complaint of mine. Monsters should never. This monster does not have a 1 damage attack. This is correct design.
Yep.
I do not. Please stop printing monsters.
Right.
Monsters that have 1 damage attacks. This should have never been a thing. It should not be a thing right now. If I was made king for a day, the number one thing I would do is I would go through all the monster scrolls and fix them, and I would erase every 1 damage attack from monsters, and they would all become multi-damage. Period. End of story. A monster should never have an attack that hits as hard as a rat with a rusty spear. Those should not be equivalent in any world or any shape or form. The dude walking around the size of an Atlas mech, okay, should not be hitting like a rando with a club. Just bottom line. I would also point out that because you add 8 to your hero's wounds characteristic,
Right.
you will often end up with more wounds than the actual monsters in the base races that have often been set to 12. Right?
Yeah.
Because you're often starting at like a 5 wound hero and adding 8 on top, you go to 13 base. So you kind of already start up a little higher. Not always. Like obviously the people like the Griffin are 13 wounds or whatever. So it's not 1-to-1, but yeah. Yes, absolutely. You can be like you can make the Lord on, let's just say you find the Lord on Griffin pretty underwhelming, which fair. Right? For his 320 points. You can make a somewhere between 320 and 400 point version of that Lord on Griffin that like, oh, that Griffin's going to do some work, son. Like he's red to go.
Yep.
Red to go. He's going to come in with that hammer hitting like a truck. And then the monster goes in and does some dirty business. So, yeah, I mean, I love the big monster design. I think it's actually where this shines. In between like 300 and 400 points, I'm just going to put it like that, or between 30 and 40 Destiny, whatever you want to say, is actually where I think you get to make just the coolest stuff. Like, you make things I've dreamed about making in this game. My only complaint is that I wish they had 2 different bodies for the monster profiles, because they don't have any, like, ranged monster
I was just thinking the same thing in that, like, getting to the monster, you've got a one size fits all to some extent.
Yeah,
right? Every monster that's going to show up is going to have the same profile.
Same core.
And so I would say the same way, though. I mean, like we see that difference in the battle tomes where you can give your monsters some extra upgrades or whatever. Like there should just be could additionally be a chart of characteristic enhancements for monsters to make them unique, right? They don't all have to fly. They don't all have to be melee. They can have, like you said, a shooting attack instead of a melee or something like that.
Yep, exactly. Like the bestial companion chart is actually a really good deal, like a shockingly good deal. You can enhance your big monster cheaper than you can enhance the guy on top. Yep. Like you can give the monster like +1 to hit and +1 to wound with really good attacks and +1 attack, by the way, even. Very, very cheaply. So you can actually make the monster into a monster. But the problem is you're always still talking about a melee monster, right? So yeah, you can give them like a breath attack, you can make it fly, you can give it things like impact hits and stompy stomps, and that's all cool. Like I like making stompy monsters. I think the existing stuff here is actually really good at. So if your conception is like a traditional stompy monster, you can make a good version of that. But if you wanted to make like a Cygor, a steam tank, a KO boat, right? Something like that where it's more of a ranged monster. You can't really do that.
Or like the that new Sphinx, right? That has a psychic or an area effect ability, or like and it seems like to me it just needs to be an expansion of this bestial companion, and which I just brain farted on that it being here. But just make it where you're swapping some things out, right?
Exactly. Yes, it should have a swap table. You're exactly right. I think the swap table is what's missing, right? Where you could take where you can say like remove the claws attack and instead add this like eyes of fire laser beam attack or whatever, right? So you could build again. It's not like these things are rare. The Lumineth, the Huracanum, the steam tank, the KO boat. Insert any, right?
Yep.
The Cygor, like. There are lots of versions of those kind of ranged creatures, and the breath attack is not a good thing that fills in. Like the breath attack itself is actually one of the worst upgrades. It's drastically overcosted for what it does, and it's just like it's cool. It's fine-ish if you like a breath attack doing maybe 1 or 2 mortal wounds on average, maybe like on a decent roll.
Yeah.
But like I want to make a cool ranged monster. And again, you could swap it and make them less effective. I'm all right with that, know. But I want to design my own KO boat.
Yeah.
Right.
Like I love what they did, and I love that. Like I would love if this was the alpha, right?
Sure.
Yep.
Like this is the first pass, and we get a more refined version that like, and I think that we could even get to a point where like point scale. I don't know. Like I love creating my own stuff, and I love like this is right in my wheelhouse. And so I don't know. Like I'm all like stars and googly eyes about the Anvil of Apotheosis.
Yep. The version 2 guaranteed is gonna be called Cogworks, where you're building your own forts. You're building your own cog machines.
Yes.
How amazing would that be?
Amazing.
Yeah.
Look, I'm not going to lie. As somebody who played BattleTech for many, many years and used to have all of the charts memorized, like I could build a mech, Inner Sphere Clan in my head. I knew every frame. I knew every cost, every weight, every tonnage, every amount of spots it took on the frame, everything. And that was like my favorite part of playing BattleTech was just building mechs. Actually playing the game, I was like, oh, okay, I'll do this part. That's fine. But like being able to, I could like having a version 2 of this that includes exactly what you just said, right? Like the Cogworks or something where you could actually design your own ships or tanks or religious, sort of carts fly, wheeling around. Sure. Would just be incredible. Like it would make my freaking year. I think this version is really good if you largely want to build either some very simple buffing heroes, right? Sure. So like a dude on foot who makes everybody like bravery 11. You can just like have it'd be this is actually something, Tom, that I thought was actually super cool for elves, right? Okay. So you can take like the basic Aelf model, which is like a 3-point thing and starts at bravery 7, right? You can make it Daughters of Cain. You could turn it into an acolyte because they can be acolytes if because why not, right? Or you could make it a commander. Doesn't matter. You could go either way.
Yep.
And then you could give it the totem and the inspiring thing.
Yep.
And then up their bravery, right? So you can up their bravery to 10, and then you can make it so everybody wholly within 18 of this model, because they'd have the totem keyword, uses their bravery. And then if you've got the statue around, you've suddenly got bravery 11 witch elves by default.
I know.
And suddenly like Mind Razor gets real scary, buddy. Just chopping them down. Even the skeletons are getting 2 damage attacks from that.
You're speaking my love language.
And that's, by the way, an actual pretty cheap hero, by the by.
Right.
Like, that's one of those heroes I'm talking about. Like, you could build that as a 50-point hero.
Yep. Easily.
Right?
Easily. Yep.
That's where they probably need to be minimum 100, because that kind of doesn't feel right.
Yeah, I mean, like, I think the simple move to make it all minimum 200, 400, I think solves all of it.
Sure.
Like, you just say...
you had to spend your whole thing.
You have 20 points to spend, and minimum of 200 points.
Right. If I was going to do that, I'd actually do it as probably 100, 200, 400, I think would be my idea, like Champion Hero Lord or something like that, kind of a breakdown.
Yep.
But sure, yes, where you just say, like, that's the flat thing. You get these 20 points, you spend whatever you spend, it's going to cost that flat amount. So, you might as well spend all your points.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I think that, like, I think it's more balanced in that world rather than being able to piecemeal it.
Yeah.
Yep. And that's why this is in the narrative space, because narrative is like it's like the padded room for rules.
Sure.
You can't hurt yourself in narrative, or it's maybe less likely to hurt yourself with stuff like this because we work around it, or we give everybody knives, and so and maybe they'll figure it out for match play later too. So
well, it does feel like there's so many good ideas here, and I think naturally the idea of this in your group, which is how it's probably going to be implemented, because like we said, this probably won't be hitting many tournaments without some kind of FAQ or change, but that doesn't matter. That doesn't mean it can't be a function in your group. And I think that once you all agree, it's sort of a non-aggression pact, right? Like we're all going to agree not to just like be horrible people, right? Because we're all friends, and we're all going to work collaboratively to not be terrible people, and that seems like pretty good.
And I'll just spout my philosophies and put a harder point on what I was just saying, is that the way a lot of events for narrative is constructed is it diminishes the incentives to kind of take everything to 11 and beat everybody up. And so by removing the need for everything to be the best it can be, or the hideous it can be, that gives us gives people freedom to make less optimized versions of this. And you can simply say, well, this is the guy I had in my head, or the girl I had envisioned, and that's just what it is.
Yep.
And this allows those who have these special characters they built to just put them on the table, and that's extremely satisfying. And then and that's and I say that I said that kind of glibly again, but like in the hands of a GM, or like in the same kind of way, if you've got a group that's trusts each other, this sort of stuff doesn't need as many restrictions. So the fact that it has restrictions on it's, again, another weird thing. But it also just doesn't need to be as refined to start off with. So, we'll test it out. Everybody test it out, and we'll see where it goes.
Yeah, I want to shout out your boy Paul, who's in the comments, and who dropped something that I love the idea of. Okay. So he said, let me pitch an idea. Every future battle tome comes with additional abilities to add to your anvil build.
Oh.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, because that's what we're lacking, right? Are those like race-specific things where you can make the guy really feel like it's more part of your force, right?
Well, And
I'll go one farther. By the by, I would just love to see a big white dwarf completely dedicated to this, and just
no,
like
no, no, no,
one page per.
no. This is the easiest app to build.
Absolutely, appify this. Yes.
And it could be a web browser app that you just click, 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 and you've got a war scroll, and you print that out and take a picture. Like it.
Where is the builder on this? I want the builder on this added to when you go to the community site and it's like lists and building tools and you can build those.
Yeah.
I want that Anvil of Apotheosis and web builder in there like tomorrow.
And the sound file while you're clicking through is just tink, 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 tink.
Oh, that'd be amazing.
Somebody fire up a GeoCities page. We can get this going. Okay. Yeah, I mean, because again, this is so straightforward. It just feels like it'd be the easiest thing to codify, really, right?
Absolutely.
Cool. Is there anything else we want to say about the Anvil? I mean, I think it's all good. I don't feel like there's, I don't know. The spells are really good. I actually like the base spells and the base prayers. I think are both fine. I think they make cool wizards and cool acolytes. And obviously, oftentimes you'll be getting additional spells or prayers from your specific book if you already have those things. So that's cool. They slot right in there. No issue there.
Right.
Yep.
I mean, basically, they go through and say, adjust hit, adjust wound, or adjust damage, adjust all these things. So if I don't know if there's anything missing. But yeah, like I said, it's modular and you can easily add something to fit whatever you're doing, your campaign.
Yeah, I think for the most part, it feels like they covered sort of all the. Like I said, this feels like a really solid 1.0.
Yeah.
I can think of so many ways I would love to expand this.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
This is so rich for what could be done here. I really hope, and I know this was Sam worked on the narrative section. I think he knocked this out of the park. Within this section, I agree with you. I think he was taking bigger swings. I think this whole thing is a big swing.
Yeah.
Right.
Sure.
So I really hope that everybody's shouting out Sam on Twitter or whatever, telling him how much they love this, and that this sticks around, like that they continue to expand this to build on this, because I do think this could be so rich, right? So yeah. Anything else you'd want to see added to this in the future? We've mentioned many race, species specific ones or army specific build out loadout options. We mentioned the cog works. Anything else you think would be cool to fit in here? We also mentioned the ranged frame as the base frame for like the monster.
Yeah.
Okay. Mm-hmm. I'll give you one. I would love to see the ability to be treasonous built in here, or a heretic, an outcast, whatever you want to say. So this is me obviously speaking from Skig's perspective, but to allow a different race, entry, species, archetype, whatever they're called, ancestry, sorry, into a different army, right? Yep. So it's you could restrict that in some way or not. You could have it cost more if it's really crazy. Yep. Lots of ways to do it. But like the idea of having somebody with a crazy keyword or a crazy set of things, like have a Skaven running around in your Stormcast army.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
Do you think would it make sense to like, instead of charging DPs or whatever, like did it cost command points to bring something like this in?
Sure. I mean, you could have that as an additional cost in certain conditions, right? Like you could see it being the case that like sort of hiring this hero cost you your first command point, almost like mercenaries.
Yeah.
Right. That could be part of a resource. Sure.
Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah.
But yeah, I agree with you. Like we have blown past single ancestry armies.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
Paul just shouted out another gem, a mutation builder for like all the different armies that play in a mutation space. All the demons, Skaven, right? Like there's a lot of armies where mutations are somewhat prevalent, and that would be a cool thing to generate.
Terrain or your army terrain artifact thing.
Oh, building your actual terrain piece.
Yeah, that'd be
Yeah.
neat.
Build your own terrain piece for your army. That's
Yeah.
a cool way to expand it. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, just take everything that they currently put out and just put it in the hands of us,
Sure.
Yeah.
and let us build what we want.
It's true.
Somebody said woo a use for the OBR command point. It's a good point. You're coming back, OBR. We're trying to get you back in here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Coach, you're welcome.
Absolutely.
Love you, man.
Any other thoughts we want to give on Anvil of Apotheosis? I mean, a big victory, right? I mean, that's what we agree.
Yeah. It's just the continuation. I mean, from the members of the Warhammer community team, building their random, armies and kit bashing things, and we're seeing more, out of the box, mutated armies all over Twitter. People just aren't afraid anymore.
Right.
And this is just an evolution of GW say, hey, we're just going to put out plastic things. Like they're going to go to just like putting out bits. Like it's just going to be a bits company, and we're just going to build whatever comes to mind.
Sure. All right. With that brings the narrative section to a close. I will say also I do love the pictures of the converted heroes in here. Actually, the converted vampire lord on zombie Archeon dragon is truly singularly amazing, which was Thomas Elliott. So yes, that is a gorgeous conversion, like A+ work. I love converting Archeon, and so that was a big win. All right. Well, Eric, thank you very much for joining us, buddy. Great time having you. We're glad to have you back on.
Always.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Absolutely. For all of you out there who are watching, thank you so much. Don't forget, the best way you can show your support is just give us a like. Just move your mouse from like here over to here. Click that like button. It's so easy. It's so fun. Look at how much better you'll feel about yourself just after you do it. It's wonderful. So do give it a like. Don't forget about the survey. It is now down in the description. You may need to refresh your browser or something to make it appear, but I did add it while the show was going on.
Mm-hmm.
So please do fill out the survey. It takes less than 1 minute. It is 10 questions. It is so easy. I know this week is full of homework. You have to hit the like button and do a survey. Jeez. So much crazy stuff. But as always, I want to thank you very much for watching. We appreciate it very much. And we'll see you next Wednesday.